Hello, and welcome to Season 1, Episode 6 of the Free Fork podcast. My name is Michelle Sadowski, and I'm so happy to have you here today. Before we get into it, let's just take a moment to check in. If you're listening to this while you're driving, or maybe you're folding laundry, walking the dog, or maybe you're hiding in the bathroom, pretending that you don't hear anyone calling your name, welcome. You are among friends, truly. Let's take what might be our single moment of peace today. And we're going to take a deep, slow, intentional breath in through your nose and a long, slow exhale out through your mouth. Let's do one more together, but this time I want you to hold it at the top. Take a deep, slow inhale through your nose. Hold it at the top for 4, 3, 2, 1. And audibly sigh when you let it go. Okay, let's shake that off. That alone probably felt a little rebellious if your day is anything like my day. Now, if you're exhausted, I just want you to know that this episode is not about pushing harder. It's not about optimizing your time better. It's not about finding another thing to fix about yourself. This is about understanding why your body might be waving a tiny little white flag, or honestly, sometimes a giant red one. I don't know what your social media feeds have been looking like these days, but mine, especially the local mom groups, are absolutely flooded with the same kind of posts over and over again. They're mostly anonymous posts. They're written by overtired moms who are at their absolute worst. They're desperate for advice. And they reach out to the momunity, if you want to call it that, because they know that usually they'll be understood without judgment or a need for explanation most of the time. Let's be real. It can also feel a little like the Hunger Games out there in the social media world. So just watch your step and watch your tone and, maybe keep an eye on the comment section. But these moms are tapped out. They're touched out. They're grossed out. And honestly, they're on the verge of being knocked out. These moms have depleted every reserve of energy that they have. And when that happens, it seeps into everything. It seeps into relationships with their kids, with their partners, with their friends. If they're working, it interferes with work. And then that impacts habits, which circles right back to health. It's a very slippery slope on the battlefields of momland. And here's what really gets me. So somebody reaches out for help, they explain what their challenges are, and they do so, accepting whatever responses they're going to get. And more than half of the responses to these cries for help are things like, cut your carbs or count your macros, follow this weight loss program, try a GLP-1. If you're not familiar with that is, it's a weight loss drug like Ozempic, or a totally unguided, unrealistic fitness plan that ignores lifestyle or energy and reality altogether, what their lives of these moms look like. And then because it's the internet, there's always the coping suggestions that are maybe on the funnier side. Make time for wine and a good man is a literal suggestion that I read in a post a couple of weeks ago. No one, and I mean no one, loves to throw around unsolicited, inappropriate advice more than moms in a Facebook group. It's a little like the wild, wild west out there, so just be careful. We often hear so much about the moms who are struggling to meet their basic self-care needs. And more often than not, it's the moms who are parents of a newborn or parents of a newborn among other children. And these are the moms that are eating their kids' leftovers because they just didn't have time to manage putting together a healthy meal for themselves. They barely get themselves dressed. They wake up in the morning and they're in their pajamas, and all of a sudden it's 4 o'clock and they're still in their pajamas. And then what's the point in getting out of your pajamas if it's almost dinner time and bedtime, and may as well just stay in your pajamas at that point? Showers are generally optional, and movement just feels like an impossible add-in to your day. And that person, that profile that I just described, is talked about so much in the parenting space, and rightfully so. It's a really challenging time of motherhood. But there's another pocket of motherhood that we don't talk about as often. These are the moms who are maybe the ones who say, I work out, I watch what I eat, I sleep as much as I can, but I'm still so tired. And what they feel inside is, I'm doing everything right, and yet my body is failing me. This category represents a huge population of moms. It's the moms who are maybe out of that newborn phase, or out of the phase that they have lots of little young kids in the house, and they're maybe a few years out of that phase. And they're working really hard to do all of the things that they think they should be doing to take care of themselves. They're drinking their water as much as they can, and maybe they've cut out certain things, and they're exercising, and they're doing everything. And they try their best to find balance and make time for self-care and all the things that the social media world tells us that we should do. However, they still feel like garbage. And here's the honest truth. You can be executing all of the correct behaviors. And when I say correct, I mean, I'm going to air quote correct, because what's correct for one person is not necessarily correct for somebody else. And that's the trouble with going down a rabbit hole of TikTok or Instagram feeds where we see moms telling you what you should be doing to take care of yourself. What's good for them might not be good for you. But regardless, you might be doing all the right things. And you still might be under immense stress at the same time. We wildly underestimate the impact of stress on the body. And we often misdiagnose stress in ourselves. We look at ourselves, maybe we analyze our current state of being, and we're like, no, I'm not stressed. I'm fine. I feel fine. I'm just going to keep pushing through, keep going. I can do it. I'm strong. I'm resilient. I'm a mom. I don't need anyone. I'm good. I can hold 12 bags straight from the car to the door and nobody needs to help me. I can do it. We know you can do it. But we misdiagnose stress in ourselves all the time. Stress is not an emotion. It's a mechanism that provokes emotions. So I want to take a moment to talk a little bit about what stress might look like for somebody who's in this category and in this stage in their life. When stress is short term, we adapt, we pivot, we respond, and we come back to our baseline. There are generally 3 stages of stress, and it's all part of, a concept called the general adaptation syndrome. And I'm no therapist, but this is fairly, I would say, therapy 101. But this is how our bodies generally adapt to stress. There's kind of 3 phases of it. Stage 1 is the alarm phase. Something triggers you. Your sympathetic nervous system jumps in to save the day. Adrenaline spikes. Your heart rate goes up. Your blood pressure goes up. In this stage, it can be rather helpful in a dangerous situation because your body mobilizes really quickly to get you out of a potential dangerous situation. You jump, you react, and you run if you need to. But we go into what we generally know as the fight or flight reaction. Now, that typically can last anywhere, it depends on the situation and it depends on what the trigger might be. But when our cortisol spikes, but it could take anywhere between 20 and 60 minutes for us to sort of come back down to normal. And that, I would say, is a wide window. Some people might return back to a normal state sooner or maybe a little bit later. But when we're in that cortisol spike phase, we're on high alert. Now, stage 2 is the resistance phase. Your body attempts to calm down. Your parasympathetic nervous system steps in. Your heart rate starts to slow. You begin to cope with whatever stressor is in front of you. That is assuming that the stressor has gone or that the stressor is no longer an immediate threat. However, however, what if the stressor sticks around or the stressor is ongoing? Tension sticks around too. And this is where we start to see the beginnings of some of those symptoms: fatigue, headaches, digestive issues. And the longer that stressor sticks around, the more symptoms or the more severe symptoms we might begin to see. Now, stage 3 is the exhaustion phase. This is when we are at maximum capacity. Our body at this point is running out of its reserve fuels. Our immune system starts to dip, our energy crashes, and symptoms that we've just discussed can now start to progress into more chronic issues. And you can understand from this simple explanation how ongoing stress can lead to some significant health challenges. But here's the misconception. When we think about stress, generally, we think about big traumas. We think about job loss or divorce or death, a breakup, something that is maybe big, expected, unexpected, whatever it might be, but something really significant. And yes, those obviously count as stressors and will have massive impact on the emotional well-being of anybody. But stress can also be subtle. I want to think of these stressors as quiet stressors that we sometimes ignore. I am a huge, huge person that does this. This is a huge problem for me. I am somebody who likes to think that I'm invincible. And I have always been the type of person that says, no, I can do it myself. This happened even today. I was on an airplane on a work trip, and the person next to me offered to help me with my bag down from the overhead bin. And instead of just accepting this kind stranger's help, I was like, no, I got it. I'm fine. Just to prove something. I don't know why. But I struggled to get my bag out, and I did it, obviously. But it was just an unnecessary thing that this kind stranger was trying to help me. But that's me. I have a lot of quiet stressors that I have always brushed under the rug. But the problem is when you continue to brush a lot of things under the rug gets pretty bumpy and they're kind of hard to hide at some point. Quiet stressors might be something like underfueling ourselves or thinking about the demands of movement, nervous system overload, constant stimulation, or never fully and properly resting, even on days off. Your nervous system doesn't really separate emotional stress from physical stress. It just registers load. This is a load on my body. This is a load on my mind. And if you think about moms, one of the biggest things that we've heard in the mom world, in the parenting space, is about the mental load that moms carry. And when that load stays too high for too long, the body adapts by starting to conserve energy. That might look like fatigue, brain fog, pain or tension in the body, low motivation, cravings, poor sleep habits. If you think about none of these symptoms that we see are because your body's broken or because you're doing something wrong. This is how your body is trying to protect you. It's equivalent, I would say, to when your battery is dying on your phone and you have the option to turn on low power mode. That's what your body's doing. So You kind of have less features accessible to you, or things move a little slower because your phone is trying to reserve its battery for as long as possible before it dies. That's literally what your body is doing. Your body is putting yourself into low power mode. And that means that certain features, certain parts of us have to shut down to accommodate that. That's a protection mechanism that our bodies are built with. So let's talk about some of these quiet stressors in a bit more detail. Underfueling. So, one of the most common patterns I see and hear about, especially with working moms, is underfueling. Not intentionally, not dramatically. These are not the fad diet women that are like, I refuse to eat because I believe this is going to help me, lose weight or less bloating or whatever it is that they think they're going to do. This isn't dramatic. This is like accidental. These are the oops, I skipped breakfast moms, or the I'll just have a light lunch mom, or I'll just eat later when I have time for it moms. These are like, it's a bit of like being a martyr about meals. You're so busy getting the kids out of the house in the morning that by the time you've sat down to nourish your body, it's 12:30 p.m. By the time you've, dealt with everybody else's stuff, it's 12:30 and you haven't had a morsel of food yet. And again, I told you that I am somebody who does a lot of these things. Today is a perfect example. I woke up in the morning. I had to pack and get my stuff ready to go to the airport. I got to the airport and I had a matcha latte when I got there. And then I got on my flight and I was like, I'm a little hungry. Being gluten-free, didn't plan ahead. The airport had very limited options. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll just eat when I get to Ottawa. So I got to Ottawa. And then by the time I ate something, it was like 3:00. And I could feel my blood sugar was dropping. Like, it just wasn't smart of me to run on empty like that. But days happen and things happen. And so often we are underfueling ourselves. And then later comes this feeling of starvation. So out of desperation to just eat something as quickly as possible, we grab something quick, a chocolate bar or maybe a protein bar, which in a pinch is not the worst thing ever, depending on the type of protein bar, but it's not an ideal meal. Or we grab 2 chicken nuggets off of a kid's plate because they run away, or a handful of this and a handful of that from the cupboard just to satisfy a desperate need to eat something. Or alternately, we treat certain foods as rewards for somehow surviving the day. And the issue is that these foods often lack the protein and fats and carbs that we need for actual energy. Your body reads this deficit as scarcity. And when fuel is inconsistent, when your body does not regularly know when it's going to have its next meal, your nervous system jumps into survival mode. Energy gets redirected away from things like focus or mood or long-term health and well-being. And it gets focused on just getting through the day. Caring for everybody else often comes at the cost of caring for yourself, and without even realizing it. And yes, all of that counts as stress on the body. The next one I want to touch on is movement as a demand. Oftentimes we hear, it's so important to move every day, and it's 10 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day, whatever it might be. We hear constantly the importance of moving. And I will never say that that's not true. Moving our bodies is really, really, really important to mental health and to physical health. However, movement gets sold to moms as like the cure-all for all your problems. Just move a bit more, just push through, just stay consistent, lift heavy. And listen, like I said, movement is essential to health. But when your body is already underfueled, underrested, and overstimulated, too much exercise or the wrong kind of exercise becomes another stressor. This doesn't have to look extreme. And it might be that this is the case for you and you don't even realize it. It might look like high intensity workouts stacked one on the other, on the other, on the other, and those are stacked on top of already really busy days. It might be that somebody is exercising out of this feeling of guilt, not desire, but just guilt. Or maybe they just never adjust their types of workouts when their energy is low. Maybe they feel worse instead of better afterwards. Although generally speaking, I will say that even on the days when I don't really feel like working out, when I do actually go and work out, I feel really good afterwards. I have yet to regret it. But there are definitely times where I have like pushed through a workout that I didn't really want to do. And I would have just been equally as happy to sit in bed. And the last one is just that we never take rest days. When effort outweighs recovery, the body will slow you down. You'll feel fatigue and soreness and irritability and stalled progress in terms of your fitness goals. Sometimes the most supportive thing you can do is less or gentler. Have you ever noticed how maybe in one workout you feel like you are unstoppable, like you could lift a car? There are some times that I go and do my workouts at Oxygen Fitness, which I love so much. And if you're not familiar, it's like a heated infrared sauna class, and there's yoga classes, there's Pilates inspired classes, there's fitness classes, there's HIIT classes. There's really quite a large array of classes, and they're all in the heat. And I have built a lot of strength as it relates to my progress in these classes. When I started going there, I would say my light, medium, and heavy weights for classes were, a 5, 10, and a 15. And now my light is an 8 and my medium is a 12. And they don't really have more than 15s there, so I still really do 15s, but I could do more. Some weeks I go and do a workout and it feels like I'm so strong. Like my energy is endless and I could keep going. And then the next week or 2 weeks later, I barely survived the warm up. And I feel like I had to drop my weights down. And there's a lot of humility that comes along with being able to recognize when your body needs more or needs less. But that's not weakness. That's our hormones. That's our hormones, people. Your menstrual cycle affects your physical capacity throughout the month. Different phases support different types of movement. That's called cycle syncing, and it really matters. If you're not familiar with cycle syncing, there's a really great visual that I have in the blog post, and I'll see if I can add to the show notes, that talks about the 4 phases of our menstrual cycle and the types of exercise that work best within that phase. So we have our menstrual phase. This is typically when we have day 1 of our period to when our period's over. And the things to do during this time are exercises like walking, yoga, mat Pilates, foam rolling, stretching, things that nourish our body and fuel our body because our body's working really hard when we're in a menstrual phase. And then the next phase is the follicular phase. This is great for cardio, for things that get your heart rate pumping, power vinyasa if you like yoga, running if you like. I don't hate people who like running. I just hate running, and I don't get people who like running. My body just has way too many injuries in my ankles, knees, and hips for running. But I do support people who like to run. I will watch you from afar and give you a high five when you finish. Swimming, just movement that gets your heart pumping. And the next phase, we have the ovulatory phase. And this is where we start to feel a bit stronger. So we can combine cardio and strength together for HIIT classes or like cycling classes, CrossFit, boot camp, things like that. And then the luteal phase is where we would be really, good to have strength training, low incline walking, yoga, bar classes, Pilates classes, things that work on like really targeted parts of the body, I suppose. And you can see just based on that different phases in our body, our hormones are offering us something different. And we swing quite a lot from phase to phase. And it's important that we listen to our bodies and that we adjust our workouts based on what our body is telling us. So I do recommend that you take an opportunity to listen more to your body, take a note of what phase you're in, even just start to track, even if you're somebody who does the same workout over and over and over again. Track your phase and see how you respond to the same workout over each of the 4 phases and see if there's a kind of correlation between where you're at, what your body's trying to tell you, and what your workout is looking like. The next one I want to talk about is our nervous system overwhelm. If your system is always in go mode, it never gets the signal that it's safe to rest. This is me. I am this person. I have a full-time job that includes lots of travel. I'm literally traveling right now. I have 3 kids, a husband. I work out 3 to 4 times a week. I have a very active social life, multiple social media pages that I manage, regular leisure travel. It's very high on my list. And on top of all of that, I produce and direct a charitable theater production company with my husband that is like, honestly, like having another full-time job. And people joke to me all the time, like, how do you do it all? And I don't know the answer. I think it's because I have a problem. Is it because I think like I'm just built this way? Or do I think I'm invincible? I mean, I do think I'm invincible. I don't know if I feel like I have something to prove to the world or if I just have like unresolved trauma that I mask with busyness, which my therapist, who is so supportive, probably would say, yes, you need to be less busy sometimes. But yes, it's all of the above. My therapist, who I love so much, we talk about this a lot, that there needs to be a space for nothingness. And I constantly live in a space where I hate not being busy, but then I complain all the time about how busy I am. And then when I go on vacation or I I take a moment and turn off my phone, I realize how hard I've been going. And when I crash hard. When we live like this, our nervous system never shuts off. And this might be you if you have the following characteristics. At the end of the day, you might be wired but tired. You might say, oh, I'm exhausted. I can't wait to get into bed. And then you get into bed and all of a sudden your eyes are wide open because your brain won't shut off, even though you're exhausted, and you can't fall asleep. Maybe you have a really short fuse and you snap really easily on your spouse or your friends or your kids or, a work, whatever. You feel like your fuse is short. Maybe you're feeling emotionally flat. You're feeling a little numbed out and you feel like not joy out of many things, not anger out of many things, not sadness out of many things, just flat. Or maybe you completely crash when the house is quiet. All of a sudden you're like a zombie and you completely just turn off. This isn't a mindset issue. This is a regulation issue. Even when you're resting, your system is still buzzing. And think about the constant input. Think about the constant input to our brains that's going on all the time. We might be scrolling on our phones even when we're eating. Maybe we're being interrupted by somebody all day. You get focused on something finally, and then somebody from work pops in just to ask you a question and you get carried off on a tangent with them. Or maybe you have a kid at home and they are constantly mummy, 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 mummy. There gets a point usually on the weekends where I say to my son, you've said mummy too many times in the last hour. We're going to go on a mummy break. Background noise constantly on. There are people I know who work with a TV on in front of them. Even if it's on mute, it's still movement happening. There's input, sensory input constantly all the time. Maybe you are wearing an Apple Watch or you have your phone near you and your notifications are on and it's nonstop notifications from emails, from messages, from phone calls, from, Microsoft Teams, whatever it is. I found actually that when I turned off my notifications on my phone, it made a big difference. But more importantly, when I took my iWatch off, my Apple Watch, it was causing me so much anxiety and I didn't even notice because whenever an email would come in, even if it's an email from The Gap, it's so useless. But I would take my attention away from whatever it was I was doing and I would look at my watch. And if it was something that I did need to address, like a message or a phone call, Instead of seeing it when I see it and getting to it when I get to it, it was an immediate need to respond right then and there. And I found that that was a huge source of anxiety for me. And also, we doom scroll on our phones late into the night. And often my husband will roll over and go to sleep and he'll be like, "You're not asleep yet? What are you doing?" I'll be like, "Oh, I'm just on my phone. I'm not doing anything significant. I'm just, I think I'm trying to power down my brain, but really it's not helping me do that." The only time that I actually start to feel sleepy is when I put my phone away. And none of this is bad by itself. It's not, but it's constant. Your nervous system needs low input moments in order to reset. That means you need stillness or silence. Sometimes we need boredom, and that's okay. Don't be scared of boredom. And sometimes we just need space. Rest isn't just stopping the workload, and it isn't just, silencing things. It's reducing stimulation. So here's the shift that changes everything. Your body doesn't need more rules. It needs more support. Your family does not benefit from you operating in martyr mode. They benefit from you being well. That means that you need to hold yourself accountable to eat enough and eat consistently. You need to scale your movement to match your energy. Move, absolutely move, but make your movement work for you instead of trying to fit into the box of your movement. Creating small moments of safety and pause throughout your day, and letting rest actually be productive. Healing starts when your body feels safe, not when it's pushed harder beyond its limits constantly. Ask yourself, what would enough look like today? And maybe what it looks like today is different than what it looked like yesterday or the day before or what tomorrow's going to look like. What is my exhaustion asking me for? Where am I pushing myself without replenishing? When do I get quiet time, if ever? And what would supporting myself like I support my kids look like? That's a big one. You don't need to overhaul your life, I promise. You just need to start listening to your body. If any of this resonates with you, I would love for you to reach out. I'm slowly going to start offering limited free exploration calls. I haven't figured out what that looks like yet. All of this is still very new, but I'm going to be offering some opportunities for some free sessions in the coming months. We will take a look at what your exhaustion is really rooted in and what kind of support your body's actually asking for right now. This isn't about fixing you. You're not broken. It's about understanding you. We always treat the cause, not just the symptoms. So as always, thank you for being here. Take very, very good care, and we'll see you next time.